welcome to another episode of Streaming Safari here at the Lion Habitat Ranch. First, of course, as always, I'd like to thank you if you've come out to see us, been able to make any donations, or help us out on Amazon Smile. All those links are right below. There should also be a link for something pretty cool. Best of Las Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm. Vote
voting.
Vote BOLV.
VoteBOLV.com, I believe, is the website. And we're on there for you to vote for every day up until September 23rd. So if you could help us out and vote, that would be much appreciated. It's really helpful to us. It lets people know that we're here and that we're open. And we're open, just to remind you, Thursday through Monday from 10 to 2. And we're going to have, coming up in October, our Boo at the Zoo from October 29th through the 31st. So we'll be celebrating it for 3 days. Our lions will be getting lots of cool enrichment, probably pumpkins again. Yeah, pumpkins.
We always get pumpkins every Halloween.
So that's one of my favorite things. So please come out and join us for that. My mic's a little loud today. And today, for Streaming Safari, we're going to be talking a little bit about planting. It's a little bit strange because it's not springtime when you would think of planting, but we've got some weird weather here in Las Vegas. So fall can be a decent time to plant things too, and there's some things that specifically can grow really well in the fall. So you can plant things like...
You're very feedbacky today.
I'm very feedbacky today.
I'm going to turn this off and just talk loud. So... in the fall, some good things to plant are flowers that have, plants that have bulbing flowers that'll bloom later in the spring or the summer. They like to start their growth in cooler weather, so that's a really good thing to plant. If you're looking for vegetables to plant, things like lettuce and kale are really good to plant during the fall as it starts to get cooler. It's a little bit strange here in Las Vegas. When it gets really, really hot, you would think plants really like the sun, but a lot of our plants tend to die, and there's a couple reasons for that. Sometimes your soil lacks a little bit of nutrients. Our soil here in Las Vegas is made up of a lot of clay, and sometimes that lacks some of the things that plants need, and we're going to talk about things that plants need today. And also, what can be detrimental is so much sun. When it gets over a certain temperature, something you might not know is that plants don't just do photosynthesis. They also breathe like we do, so they do respiration. And kind of when it gets too hot, it's like when you're outside and you're exercising in the heat and you start breathing really fast, that's what happens to the plants. But the plants don't want to do too much of that. They want to produce that oxygen instead. They want to do photosynthesis. So when it gets too hot, they start producing carbon dioxide just like we do, and that's not very good for them. So what we're going to do is actually use some of our things that we might have used last week if you did our last week's Streaming Safari, and do some recycling and some planting. So we're going to use a egg carton as a planter essentially. And what's really good about the egg carton is if you're getting these egg cartons that are made out of paper, they're actually compostable. So they're actually going to, when you put them in the ground, they're going to break down. And so this is a really cool thing to start your plants in, because you can actually plant this in the ground and it'll start breaking down and be totally fine and not do anything bad to your soil or anything like that. So it's a really good way to reuse some of those milk cartons you might have. Don't get plastic milk cartons or styrofoam milk cartons. Those can actually be really bad for the environment, and you can't plant those in the ground, so it's not as easy to reuse them or to recycle them. So what you're going to need for this is just an egg carton, again made out of paper. And once you start using your eggs, start setting aside your eggshells. And you're going to want to rinse out your eggshells because you probably won't use enough eggs in one day to use as a fertilizer. And so you want to set them aside. You want to rinse them out so you don't have stinky eggs sitting around your house for a long time. And we always want to wash our hands. Why, Denise?
Because of salmonella.
So salmonella is a bacteria that can be found on eggshells and inside of eggs. So we have to be very careful when we use eggs, or even if you're cooking with raw chicken, because that can have that bacteria and it can make you really sick if you ingest it. So anytime you're working with eggs, make sure you wash your hands really well afterward. Okay. So this is really a pretty simple, straightforward thing. You can either have little plants right here. I have some little pieces of some of our primrose that grows on the property, and or instead you could use some seeds. So either way works. This works as a really good germinating tool. So basically you put the seeds in and they start germinating, or they start to grow in here, and you can set them inside in a window and let them grow a little bit in there. So what we want to do is, from your egg carton,
Maybe if someone to turn down Alex's mic a little bit because we're getting lots of feedback.
so from our egg carton, we want to poke some holes in the bottom. So you want to poke maybe at least like 3 holes, just little ones. Be careful if you're using scissors or something else sharp, or use a parent. And this is going to help if we accidentally overwater our plants. And then we're going to fill them with some soil. So we're going to take some soil. You can get this from just any
You could try your
hardware
mic again.
store, or try my mic again.
They turned down the volume.
Hello. Oh, I still got it.
Oh, there it goes.
Oh, that's better.
There we go.
So you can get soil pretty much at any store, like a Home Depot, or even like Target sells some nice potting soil. And the potting soil is usually made with some nutrients in it already. It's made with a lot of good stuff to start working your plants in. But we're actually going to make some of our own little fertilizer here with some things that are really safe. One of those is going to be coffee grounds, and the other is going to be those eggshells that we set aside. So I'm going to get a little sciencey on you, and I'm going to tell you the 6 macro ingredients that plants need to grow. Macro ingredients just means these are the things, they're not the only things they need, but they're the things that they need in a large amount. And those things are going to be nitrogen, potassium, magnesium, calcium, phosphorus, and sulfur. And so different things that you have that you might have left over provide a lot of those nutrients. One of them is actually coffee grounds. So in this soil that I have, I'm going to add some coffee grounds. And these coffee grounds actually contain 3 of those things: nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. And so they can add those nutrients for your plants. And especially when you're germinating plants from seeds or taking small little clippings, it's a good thing to add those extra nutrients to your dirt or your soil that you're using. And you can also add coffee grounds to the plants you already have planted outside, or even like some indoor plants, just to give them some extra nutrients. Something we can add to that we were missing from that list, so we have 3 already. We have nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. These guys we talked about last week, that eggshells are made with a lot of calcium, right? They have that calcium carbonate. So we can add some crushed up eggshells. And what's really cool about using eggshells as a partial fertilizer is it really doesn't matter how much you use. You can't use too much. So sometimes you can overwhelm your plants with too many nutrients, like too much sulfur is not going to be good. So we're going to just, you can smash up your eggshells. If you really want to too, you can make this kind of into more of a fine powder and even make like a little tea for your plants with the eggshells. Another cool thing to use to get a lot of potassium is also bananas, which you can make a tea out of. Okay, so I'm going to crush up these eggshells and put them in here. And now this eggshell and coffee and dirt mixture, I'm going to add that to continue filling my egg carton. And then once it's about 3/4 of the way full or so, you want to kind of dig a little hole in there, and you're going to plant your seed or your plant in there. Some of these have some long roots, so I'm going to try to use a lot of this. So if you're planting bigger plants, you could use a bigger portion of it, or you can just use one of the single cups. It doesn't matter, because again, this egg carton is going to be able to break down once you put it in the ground. Okay, and then get your plants nice and snug in there. Cover up all their roots. And I don't know if you noticed, but we're still missing 2 things. I said that the coffee provides 3 of the nutrients.
and that the eggs are going to provide that calcium, and I'm still missing magnesium and sulfur. So maybe we can find a really easy thing that we might already have around our house that can add some magnesium and sulfur to our plants. One of the easiest things that contains both of those nutrients is actually Epsom salt, which you may have in your bathroom. People like to use this for baths, and so if you're looking for Epsom salt, you can usually find it in the bathing section of your store near things like bubble bath. And so Epsom salt is basically has a lot of magnesium and a little bit of sulfur in it. And so what you want to do with your Epsom salt is actually mix it with your water, because of course we want to water our plants after we plant them. So I have about a gallon of water here, and you're going to add, I'm going to eyeball it, I'm going to add about a tablespoon and a half of Epsom salt to the water. For Epsom salt, it's something that we use normally. It's not dangerous to get on your hands or anything like that. Of course, you can use it in your bath. And so we don't have to be too careful about adding it to the water or adding the water to it. But you always want to make sure that when you're working with anything like acids, that you know which one to add to water first. Do you know?
I've heard of that.
So you always want to add, I don't want to tell you it upside down. Do you remember which way it is?
Nope. I wouldn't. Just err on the side of caution.
I'm gonna err on the side of caution and make sure I remember that properly before I remind you guys of that. But just make sure with whatever you're working with, you know how much you're mixing in, whether it's something that's pretty safe or something that might be a little bit dangerous for like your skin. We've talked about stuff like that in other streaming safaris too. And we're gonna add, like, sprinkle in a little bit of water. You can use a spray bottle if you want. And so this water is also giving that Epsom salt nutrients to these plants. And you can use a spray bottle, or you can just kind of run it under the sink. Now, if the water starts coming out of the little holes that we poked in the bottom, you've put in too much water. So you don't want to overwater your plants either, because they can get really overwhelmed and kind of drown in the plant and in the water. So don't give them too much water, and that's a really good indicator for that. So if your water starts flowing out of there, you're giving them too much. And you can actually just keep these in your house for a week or two and let either your seeds start germinating or your plants grow a little bit. Keep them in a nice window where there's a lot of sunlight. And then when you're ready, when your plants look ready to go, you can actually take this carton, you can cut the little sections out of it if you have seeds in each little section, or you can just take this, because I've got 2 plants in here, I could just plant this in the ground, and later on that's what Denise and I will go and do. So that's what I got for you today. It's a really easy way to, again, start your germination. Easy way to create some fertilizer with some very safe things that you probably already have around your house, so we're not dealing with anything like manure, which can be pretty complicated to make a fertilizer out of. But just with these 3 little things, you're giving your plants all the nutrients that they really need. So if you want to sprinkle some of your leftover coffee grounds around your garden, if you want to crush up some of your eggshells and sprinkle those around your garden, if you want to make some Epsom salt bath for your plants, which I find really fun. Plants like an Epsom salt bath too. So you can put some Epsom salt in the water that you're going to give to your plants when you water them, and that'll give them all kinds of extra cool nutrients that they need.
And it's a second way to use materials you have at home and recycle.
Exactly. So you'll probably have a lot of this stuff left over around your house. You can just set it to the side for a little while and then add it to your garden whenever you're ready. And thanks for joining us this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed our experiment.